Hello, and welcome to Nosotros, the podcast about Mexican-American history, politics, cultura, y más. Brought to you in part by the Gomez Law Firm. I'm your host, Elaine Ayala, Metro columnist of the San Antonio Express News. My guest today is Mike Flores, Chancellor of the Alamo Colleges District. Welcome to Nosotros, Mike.
Thank you, Elaine. Glad to be here.
Before we get to questions, I like to play a little game. Sometimes it's this or that, or I just pose something and ask you to comment on it. Okay.
All
ready?
right.
UT or the University of Pennsylvania?
Oh, wow.
Say it.
I would have to say UPenn. Yes, because my daughter's going to go to UPenn.
And I'm an alumnus of the University of Pennsylvania many, many millions of years ago, but I'm really glad she's going. She's going to have a wonderful experience.
We are as well.
And there's a Mecha chapter there.
Yeah, wonderful.
All right. Sports in education. How important are they? And by that, I mean like competitive sports.
Oh, competitive sports.
Because you don't have any, right?
No, we have intramurals.
Yes,
we have intramurals for individuals. Sports in education, I think it depends upon the person and the institution, right? Depends. Everybody has a passion that they want to pursue concurrently.
Oh, you're so safe, Mike. I'm going to drive that out of you.
Okay. Vouchers
or public education funding? Come on.
So I would have to say higher ed is a very competitive space, right? So we're supported locally, but we also compete against other institutions that are privately financed. And students take or can apply for a Pell Grant, which they can use in either sector, right? So they can bring it to us or they can take it to what's called a proprietary school. But I'm a product of public education.
So it sounds like you'd be supportive of continued funding for
K-12, ISDs, individual school districts, of course.
Okay, let me turn this off because I'm getting little. There, silent mode.
All right.
Okay. Mayoral race. Any thoughts?
Oh, wow.
27 candidates. You live in the city, so you have,
to vote. We're in the city, and we're in District 1, and of course our voters. And so I think it's a lot of individuals. It's a lot of candidates, right? So I think the city's at an inflection point. We're fortunate to have had Mayor Nuremberg for 8 years, right? One of the longest serving.
We're fortunate.
Yes, since Henry Cisneros, right? So one of the longest serving mayors. So I think all of us as voters want to ensure that we elect somebody who's able to carry the city forward. And there's 20 plus folks, 27 individuals who have indicated that they are that person. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to find someone.
Does the mayoral office have any kind of impact, do you think, on Alamo Colleges or education in general?
Yeah, I think so. I think the mayor, specifically what I've seen over my 7 years, right, as chancellor for Alamo Colleges, and that has coincided with Mayor Nuremberg. I think he's been a wonderful partner in picking up on the value of education and training. And so we've seen that from just pre-K, right, all the way through his early championing and support of Alamo Promise, in which we receive multi-million-dollar investment from the city. And then we're also a partner in one of 4 what are called prime partners in Ready to Work. So I think the mayor is critical, either for direct resourcing and investment or for championing what's called the bully pulpit, right? Being able to advocate and articulate the value of investments in education and training, and specifically in San Antonio, because of who we are and how we have struggled to produce enough credentialed talent. And so I'm hopeful that the next mayor will be able to continue what Mayor Nuremberg has done.
Enough credential credentialed
talent.
Which means who have attained some degrees, or
Yes.
Whether it be an associate, a bachelor, or higher education.
Right.
Where do we stand?
I think one of the things that we look at as data, or what we call a proof point, and which was the impetus for Alamo Promise, right? Which seeks to get graduating high school seniors to enroll with us. And we were in 2019 at 48% of graduating high school seniors in Bexar County went to college, whether it was us or UTSA or Texas A&M San Antonio.
That's better, right?
So that's 48% at that time. And so we saw the need to increase that, because that could have gone all the way from the mid-20s to over 50%, dependent upon the high school and what neighborhood they're in. But we know that where you live does not determine the assets that you have.
Your zip code determines so much.
So we wanted to address that with Alamo Promise, which launched in 2019. I mentioned 48% of graduating high school seniors enrolled in college. Now it's 56%. I think there are several factors that have contributed to that increase, but I would say that the 23,000 individuals that have enrolled in Alamo Promise since 2018 are part of increasing that college-going rate in the community. And that is a coalition of champions, a coalition of the willing. And going back to our previous conversation, Ron Nirenberg and other public sector leaders were part of that. And so were some private sector folks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one more in the this or that category. It's my one that I always ask. You better be truthful.
Okay.
Corn or flour?
Oh, corn.
See, I contend you guys, all of you that so many of the public officials that come on here are in good shape. So I believe you.
So should I give you some context to the corn or flour?
Yes.
So I would say flour definitely, until I met my wife Martha, and then it became corn, right? But
she wouldn't have it.
She grew up with corn tortillas.
Yeah, she's more Mexican.
So I think
Mexican.
in South Texas, right, with flour tortillas.
But a nice
picking
toasted.
them up with some butter from H-E-B. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But now it's all corn.
Andale. Okay. All righty.
Okay.
So now I'm going to start my regular question.
Sure.
You've come to our studio on a really big news day.
Right.
President Trump is dismantling or beginning to dismantle the Department of Education. A department, by the way, that many Democrats, at least locally, hoped you'd help lead in a totally different administration. I would have liked to have seen that result, but what do you think will be the impact on public education, on institutions like yours, on even charter schools? What's going to be the impact of this destruction of an institution as large and as important as the Department of Education?
Right. I think, yes, the President Trump signed the executive order today calling for the dismantling, as you mentioned, of the department, and also kind of decentralizing, right, with the understanding that public education, K-12, and I guess to a degree higher education, is more localized. One of the things that we're mindful of and that we watch is, a third of students nationally receive grants, in particular the Pell Grant, to be able to go to higher ed and enroll. And for us, a majority of students receive a Pell Grant, right, or college work study to support themselves through college. That is directly $95 million that comes to Alamo Colleges, through the Alamo Colleges, but directly to each specific student to finance their education. So
that is a huge chunk of your budget, isn't it?
That's about 10% of our budget, right? So we're close to $1 billion. So the $95 million definitely has an impact on that. But I think what's important is looking at that agency, which is Federal Student Aid, or what we call FSA, is congressionally mandated. The Pell Grant has congressional appropriations in it, right, that are critical. And so we see that function continuing. And I think that's what's important. The Department of Education started under Carter, right? Because before it was health, education, and welfare. And then Carter established it and they broke education out. And so I think there are various iterations of how things evolve. But what's most important to us are those funds that flow, and primary are Pell Grants and college work study, and that $95 million that I mentioned. The current administration, the Trump administration, has said that the Pell Grant, and even Secretary McMahon, right, has said the Pell Grant will continue. So we're affirmed by those public statements because we see the value that it provides to our students. There are other grants that we receive from Washington, from the Department of Ed, and so we're watching that as well. Most of those are in the same category as Pell, in which they're congressionally authorized. They're not discretionary grants, and so we believe that will continue in the future. I would say that if there is a community like our people that are resilient in the face of challenges or changes, that it is San Antonio, right? So I think that we've demonstrated that over many years, whether that was COVID, whether it is looking at what are the challenges that we confront as a community and how do we address them. Ready to Work came out of COVID, and that long line at the food bank that was captured internationally. And so Ready to Work came out of that and saying, how can we move folks to more resilient careers? And Promise is also part of that. We do rely on Pell Grants for a portion of that, but I mentioned earlier the city invests in Promise. We've raised close to $20 million in private funds for Alamo Promise. We ourselves at Alamo Colleges have funded about $20 million over the last 5 years.
You said
$95 million. So two things. One is the current administration, President Trump and Secretary McMahon, have said that Pell will continue. Okay. The other is we see that we should be able to continue to provide support to students as part of that. I would say, too, that Texas has made a record investment in the 50 community colleges within the state since the last House Bill 8, which was in the last legislative session 2 years ago. And we've realized more funds as part of that as well. And that totals over the last 2 years, close to $50 million. And so looking at all of those different kind of revenue streams, right, we do see a path forward that would allow us to move our students forward and to continue to educate them.
It sounds like universities might feel the pinch a little more.
I don't know. I know what I read, just like what you've probably seen in the headlines. A lot of universities, if they receive research funds, and the decrease in indirect costs may not be able to absorb that as much. We're primarily a teaching institution, right? So, and then we also receive half of about $250 million of that $1 billion budget directly from Bexar County taxpayers. And so maybe there's a little bit more resilience on our side. But we do see a path forward for that. We're hopeful that federal student aid will continue, and we're relying on that.
Do you sense any kind of trepidation among students or teachers, or are we good? Are we feeling fairly confident?
I think we're always mindful. I think students and faculty and staff are always mindful of changes, and transitions are always hard, right? They can be hard moving from one one location to another location, one administration and a change to another administration. They're shifting priorities. And I think our job as faculty and staff and a team at Alamo is to be able to assure folks, right, to put both feet on the ground and to ground ourselves and say, we have a mission and we have a moonshot and we have a path forward for our 80,000 students and our 6,000 employees, and most importantly, to serve this community.
We'll get to the moonshot a little later, but Alamo Promise has been the major engine of so much educational hope in San Antonio. And I still think some people get it wrong when they say, oh, free tuition.
Right.
I heard from a young student who moved here from Austin, and she's, past high school. And I said, sorry, I don't think it includes you. But so for those people,
Sure.
give us an American English version.
Okay. A Reader's Digest.
A Reader's Digest version.
Okay.
Not only of what it is, but your timeline of when, we always think, oh God, if the dropout rate gets to this, then we'll see the results of our progress.
Right.
We'll see that more people are better educated, better suited for jobs, that sort of thing. So where are we in your long-range vision for Alamo Promise?
So I think one of the things is looking at 2018 when I started and contextually talking to folks in the community, right, and talking to colleagues, faculty and staff and students at Alamo, and just based on experience, it was, what is our challenge as our community? And it was that we do not produce enough credentialed talent, right? A post-high school credential. That could be a short-term certification, say in welding, could be an associate's or a bachelor's degree.
Welders.
We need welders.
Oh my
yes.
God, we need welders.
So it would be allowing an individual to pursue that credential, that post-high school credential. And then looking at the educational attainment rate overall within Bexar County and the region, and then being able to tackle one of the biggest things, which was realizing that a majority of graduating high school seniors in Bexar County did not go to college. And then looking at poverty data and knowing that we have one of the highest intergenerational poverty rates in the United States, right?
Persistent
Yes,
poverty
yes,
over
yes.
many generations.
And one of the biggest differences between struggle and success is earning that credential. That gives you a ticket, right? It either affirms your foothold of where you are or can catapult you into the middle class. And so Alamo Promise was our first big bet as part of the moonshot of being able to tackle intergenerational poverty by looking at high school enrollment into a college, because we don't compete against UTSA or St. Mary's or Texas A&M San Antonio. We compete against poverty. The calculus.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right?
You compete
against poverty. That's what our students tell us. That's what our students tell faculty in the classroom. I couldn't study for the test. I didn't do well because I just got off of work.
Yes.
Or
they fall asleep in class.
Or I took my daughter last night to the ER and I just got out. Or, so all of those things, they make a calculation based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's survival first. And then you move up that hierarchy. So realizing that, right, that we compete against poverty, looking at the data, we said we want to first tackle high school to college transition. And Alamo Promise involved a steering committee of folks, the mayor, right, Mayor Nurnberg, Judge Wolf at that time, folks from the Hispanic.
Such good guys.
Yeah, good guys, folks from the Hispanic Chamber, Greater Chamber, private sector folks, right, from HEB, Toyota, superintendents, Taylor Amy from UTSA at that time, because he's a strategic partner, Cynthia Madsen from A&M San Antonio at that time, coming together and saying, doing a landscape analysis. What are ways that we can tackle this challenge? And we did some site visits. We went to the statewide program in Tennessee, visited Dallas that had a big program. And then we brought those lessons back and made something our own. And that's Alamo Promise, which launched then in spring of 2019. We started at 25 high schools that had the lowest college enrollment rates. So those were in West Side, East Side, South Side. And then gradually we scaled that up from 25 to 45 to over 70. So it not only includes public, it also includes private. It does include charters. It includes homeschool students. It includes what we call opportunity youth, or folks that are just getting their GED now. So we initially enroll close to 7,000 folks. We've impacted over 23,000 individuals. We call them Alamo Promise scholars because they are scholars. We're telling them that we're investing in them. And it's not only Alamo, it's the private sector, it's the public sector, it's the mayor, it's the judge. It's individuals that want to give our students a shot at a better life into the middle class. And so it's been wildly successful. And I think the most affirming thing that we see is not only the data, but it's the student testimonials in which they say, if not for Alamo Promise, my mom did not know how she was going to do it. We did not know. And I now, because of Alamo Promise, and the students have agency, right? They have the wherewithal to do many things, but it's a sense of relief that they've alleviated what they believe is a burden that has been placed on their mom or their parents or their household. And are now saying, I have the wherewithal now to achieve my dreams. And these are students who are graduating with 4.0 at any one of our 5 colleges, transferring to university, or directly going into the workforce in a high-wage field.
Yeah. I have to tell you, I spoke at a couple of classes a few months ago at Northwest Vista. Beautiful campus, by the way. And of course, these were political science students, so maybe they're more engaged, but they were very engaged. I had to end it, the questions, right? And they were very impressive, so good on you. Okay, you've talked about the Alamo Colleges moonshot, which is a reference to JFK's promise to land on the moon. And he was successful.
Yes,
we were successful.
Yes.
Although, now there's promises of all sorts of things, space-wise. And I'm not sure we're going to get there. So Alamo Forward is an even greater move to end poverty. Explain that, and then we'll get to right away. Our time goes away, so I want to get get to the dropout rates but I also there's a couple other. The bond.
Okay,
I want to get to the
of course. So Alamo Forward is, I guess, comes in many parts, right? It's multifaceted, and so Alamo Forward would pick up from the success from Alamo Promise, saying that as an organization serving tens of thousands of students and impacting and changing many lives, we can do big things. So if we look at that, it is kind of saying, well, what does our path look like? Why don't we engage faculty, staff, students, and community to say, what does Alamo Colleges look like 5 to 10 years out? So that's one. The other is actually a bond issue, which is also part of that.
You can go into it now.
Yeah, so I can go into, go into that.
I know you cannot endorse how one votes.
Right.
But you can explain what it means to the
Yes, of
Alamo
course.
Colleges.
So if we look at the process, then another is saying, since we have grown from 5 years ago serving 60,000 students, and then just recently, last August, serving 80,000, and now getting ready this August, in several months, serving 88,000, we need to then plan for that future, kind of capacity planning, right? We need we're going to need more instructional facilities, more buildings, more services, more IT infrastructure, all of those things.
More hires.
More hires, yes, more faculty in the classroom, more staff to be able to support them, all of those things. So the bond package is part of that. It's $987 million. It's on the May 3rd ballot, along with those 27 mayoral candidates, city council candidates. But it's towards the bottom of the ballot, and it is an investment. It does not involve a property tax rate increase for Bexar County residents. Simply
bond issues usually don't.
It depends on the community. We've grown so rapidly within Bexar County that there's no property tax rate increase as part of that. So the $987 million will provide unique new facilities. We're focusing those on high-wage, high-demand fields, which are aligned with what the city, the county, and others are saying is the future of San Antonio. IT with an emphasis on cybersecurity, healthcare, right, and health professions like nursing, looking at manufacturing and automotive, being able to look at STEM and bioscience, and then ensuring, of course, all the other fields with regard to transfer to university. So those areas. The other is we realize not only is Bexar County growing, but also that involves more kind of drive time. And so we're going to provide or proposing 4 additional sites that are somewhat aligned with those fields that I mentioned. So we don't have a physical presence in the South Texas Medical Center area. So the bond has in it a proposal for a School of Nursing and Health Professions that would be located in the medical center. This would provide a physical place for students that are enrolled in the programs at any one of the 5 colleges now to be able for clinicals or other courses to go to that facility in the medical center.
Is that going to be as large as some of the others, or will it be more?
So the School of Nursing would be led by San Antonio College because they have a BSN, but a student would be able to, we call it path, or have a pathway from perhaps the LVN degree at St. Philip's College, right, which is in the east side, and then go to any one of the 4 nursing programs, which are at 4 of the 5 colleges, and actually located even at Northwest Vista. So go to a nursing program at any one of our 5 colleges, and then go on to the next step, which is the BSN. And that will have 2 locations, either at the SAC campus off San Pedro or at the South Texas Medical Center off of Babcock. And so what we want to do, realizing that students have complicated lives, they may live somewhere and work somewhere else and go receive training at another facility, is provide multiple physical locations for them to be access education. And we're doing the same thing with cybersecurity or with IT, proposing specifically at a second new location at Port SA to establish a School of Emerging Technologies. That would be championed by Northwest Vista College, but have accessibility to students, once again, at any one of the 5 colleges or centers.
That would kind of place them where potential employers might be?
Yeah, and that's the other focus, is to be able to be located or co-located at a place where there is a hub of industry-focused activity. So medical center, we know what that is. Port SA, IT and cybersecurity. Brooks is the 3rd new location. That would have a focus related to manufacturing and automotive. That would be led by Palo Alto College right now. Just miles, 10 minutes away from Brooks to the Toyota plant, 10 minutes away to Navistar, 10 minutes away to JCB. So that's a hub right now. And we want students to be able to access internships, mentorships, apprenticeships, and employment. Because that's the goal. Students come to us for a credential, but they come to us for a job. And so that's why we're also looking in this bond package of $987 million, not only at new facilities at the colleges, but we want to be right there where industry is in those key sectors. And so those are 3 of the 4 new locations within Bexar County.
Where's the last one?
Is in Stone Oak. So it's in Stone Oak off of 281, Boverde and Borgfield Road. We don't actually have any physical facilities between Northwest Vista College at 151 SeaWorld area, right? Going all the way to IKEA and Northeast Lakeview College and 35. So we don't have a physical presence there. So we would have actually 2 new facilities supported by the 2025 bond in Medical Center and in Stone Oak, which provides convenience for students.
These students are going to need help with fuel.
Yeah. Yeah. So all of our students right now have accessibility and have a VIA pass, right? So either through...
They get that for free?
They get that for free, paid for by Alamo directly to VIA each semester. And one of the nice things is now there's VIA Link, right? Which is kind of a... Uber-like service that they can utilize in specific quadrants. So that's also critical. The other part is 2 of our facilities have park and ride facilities as part of that. So we want to provide accessibility. As we open up more sites, we're also going to look at, should we be providing a shuttle service to all of these sites for our students?
Okay, we're almost at our
at time.
I know. But I do want to talk a little bit about your dad.
Yeah.
Almost 15 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, right? I did a story, and we called them evergreens. And we were asked to do a story that could run anytime. And it's usually the push towards Christmas. And before you take a vacation, you're asked to write a story. So I picked you.
Yeah, very nice.
And so you never know where it's going to land.
Right.
It was the luck of the draw, I think, Mike. I think also the art was so good. It had that great Chicano painting.
Oh, that's right. That's at our house. Yes.
Your house then.
Yes.
I think that was who did, Cesar Martinez did that. It was one of his pachucos, I think.
It wasn't Cesar, it was, and he passed, but we'll get it here. Yes.
I don't think, well, maybe it landed on page 1 beautifully.
Yes.
Above the fold, as you often remind me when we think about it. And I always think of your dad with that story, because even though, I just talked to him a little bit about you, he gave me sort of that kicker at the end. You were president then.
At Palo Alto.
And I said, what do you want for your son? And he said something like, Chancellor would be nice.
Yeah.
It was just so prophetic.
Right.
Just tell them a little bit about him and your parents.
Sure. So, I think I'm fortunate. Both my parents were migrant farm workers, right? And so my dad went in what's called the West Coast Stream and worked in the canneries in California as a teen and then young adult, and discovered his pathway and used the GI Bill, right, to be able to go to SAC and then to St. Mary's to get his undergrad, and then through a fellowship got his master's degree and worked at SAC returned to SAC and then worked there for 28 years.
That's
and
also
retired.
Prophetic.
Very prophetic, and retired as a dean emeritus, right? And my mother went through the Midwest Stream with her family and worked in Idaho and Michigan and picked crops, and both of them were first-generation college students. She was a paraprofessional in Head Start and then in other jobs, and actually was, received her college degree as a working adult in an evening program. And so I think that is prophetic or profound. And when I go to classes and talk to students, I say, I am not you. I'm not a first-generation college student, but I am your son or daughter. Mm-hmm. So if not for the leap of faith that they took to pursue their dreams, I would not be here. Similar to the leap of faith, right, that you are taking and to be on our campus in our classrooms and when you cross that stage. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what's particularly important. And my wife, Martha, in the same way, as a first-generation American and a first-generation college student, going to a community college and then going to a university and being a small businesswoman, an entrepreneur. I mean, the three of them, my parents and Martha, right, are trailblazers. And being able to establish that pathway And I find both, affirmation and sustenance in what they have done. And I think that that's important for us to continue to build on that legacy and that living legacy to continue to move forward. And I'm fortunate that both Martha and my wife, Martha and I, right, are able to do that for our daughters, for Mara, who, in that question, right, is going to be a freshman at the University of Pennsylvania.
So she's also moving forward, right? She ended up in the Ivy League.
Yeah, so I think that's the next step. And each generation, I think, always wants something better for their children.
Of course.
And that's the American dream. And the same thing for Mia, our 11-year-old, right? And I think that's what's so wonderful about the Alamo Colleges is that I'm one of 6,000 folks that want something better for our 80 or 90 or 100,000 students.
You're going to get there pretty soon, rather.
Very soon. And we, every day in the classroom or on a campus or in the centers, want to ensure that our students are able to achieve their dreams because we know that that's going to transform their families.
Absolutely.
And so thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
We'll have another time.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming to Nosotros, Chancellor. You can watch the video version of this podcast on YouTube and then listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. My Metro column appears every Wednesday and Friday in the Express News. And if you want to reach me, my email address is eayala@express-news.net. Thanks for listening and see you next time on Nosotros.